"I didn't do it. Please believe me." The desperate cry of elderly Donna Rosa echoed in the deathly silence of the courtroom, her tear-filled eyes pleading for clemency, while the imminent sentence loomed like a guillotine. Judge Helena, her face etched with years of sternness and skepticism, raised her gavel, ready to seal a life's fate. But before the final blow fell, a shadow tore through the air, and a dark-feathered raven landed on the jury box, its mysterious presence freezing time, and what it revealed forever changed the destiny of an innocent woman. The silence that followed the raven's unexpected landing was dense, holding everyone's breath. Eyes, previously fixed on Judge Helena and the suspended gavel, were now glued to the dark-plumaged bird. With a swift and precise movement, the raven dropped a small dark object from its beak that clinked softly as it fell onto the defense table. It was a USB drive, insignificant in size, but at that moment it seemed to carry the weight of the world. A muffled murmur ran through the courtroom. Dr. Lucia, Donna Rosa's lawyer, a middle-aged woman whose face was marked by the exhaustion of recent days, blinked, doubting what she saw. Her gaze, once resigned, now held a spark of perplexity and faint hope. Donna Rosa, huddled beside her, slowly raised her head, her eyes, swollen from crying, fixed on the small piece of technology. She didn't understand what it meant, but she felt a pang of something different in her chest, something that wasn't despair. Judge Helena lowered the gavel with a soft thud, breaking the spell. Her expression, startled for an instant, quickly recomposed into a mask of authority. Her eyes, however, alternated between the raven, which watched with enigmatic calm, and the USB drive. A flicker of curiosity, something rare in her long career, compelled her. "What is that?" Her voice sounded softer, but with the same authority. Marcelo, Arthur Vasconcelos's nephew, who until then had maintained an almost imperceptible smile of triumph, saw his face contort. His thin lips tightened, an almost imperceptible tremor passed through his hands resting on the table. He tried to disguise the change with a cough and a tug at his tie, but the nervousness was palpable to anyone observing him closely. That raven and the strange object were not in his script. Impelled by an unknown force, Dr. Lucia extended a trembling hand and picked up the USB drive. Light and cold to the touch, she looked at the judge, seeking permission. "Your Honor," her voice choked. Judge Helena nodded, her curiosity overriding protocol. "Examine the contents carefully." A court official promptly connected the USB drive to a computer and projector. The large screen, which had previously displayed documents and evidence, now showed a folder with a single video file. An expectant silence filled the room. Donna Rosa's breath caught in her throat. She clasped her wrinkled hands, feeling her heart beat erratically. Fate, which seemed sealed, had gained a new chance. The video began to play. The image, slightly shaky, showed the interior of a luxurious office, recognizable as Arthur Vasconcelos's. Arthur's voice, deep and unmistakable, filled the room, discussing something with someone. "You can't do this, Marcelo. It's absurd." The camera, apparently hidden, focused on a corner of the room, but the nephew's cold, calculating voice soon made itself heard. "Oh, but I can, Uncle, and I will." A shiver ran down the spines of many present. Donna Rosa felt a profound shock. That voice, it wasn't hers, the voice the prosecution tried to paint as that of a murderer. It was, undeniably, Marcelo's voice. Dr. Lucia squeezed Donna Rosa's arm, her eyes fixed on the screen, a mix of horror and relief filling her face. The truth, hidden for so long, began to unravel in a way no one could have predicted. The air in the courtroom was charged with palpable tension, as every second of the video promised to unmask the charade and rewrite destiny. The video continued. Arthur, his voice choked with despair, tried to argue, but Marcelo, with frightening coldness, interrupted him. The image, still slightly unstable, moved slightly, capturing a glimpse of the nephew's face, contorted in an expression of greed and cruelty never before seen in public. He approached Arthur, and the camera registered only an abrupt movement, a muffled sound, and then heavy silence. There was no blood, no explicit violence, just the terrible suggestion of what had just happened, and the emotional impact was even greater for all present. Donna Rosa's face paled even further, if that were possible. She brought her hands to her mouth, not to scream, but to stifle a sob of pure horror and comprehension. Dr. Lucia beside her felt the elderly woman's body tremble intensely. Her own eyes were wide, incredulity mixed with righteous anger at what she saw. What unfolded on the screen was the cruelest of betrayals, a cold and calculated manipulation. Marcello then reappeared on screen, adjusting his clothes with an air of false calm, as if nothing terrible had happened. But his eyes, once cunning, now held a feverish and disturbing glint. He moved with calculated calm through the office, picking up objects, sewing scissors, an embroidered handkerchief with Donna Rosa's initials, and deliberately scattering them to incriminate the elderly woman. His voice, now lower but perfectly audible, echoed, "They'll think it was her. The old seamstress. Who would suspect? Perfect." He even took a small fabric sample from Arthur's coat and dropped it near the businessman's hand, a final touch to his macabre work, ensuring the evidence pointed to Donna Rosa. Every movement was a blow to the elderly woman's heart, irrefutable proof of the malice that surrounded her and the injustice that almost swallowed her whole. In the defendant's dock, Marcello was in profound shock. His eyes, once filled with disguised triumph, were now wide with terror. The smile he had worked so hard to maintain completely vanished, revealing a mask of pure terror and despair. He tried to stand, a scream caught in his throat, but was restrained by an officer who watched him with an expression of revulsion and disapproval. The entire courtroom was in an uproar, murmurs of indignation and shock spreading like wildfire, the truth asserting itself over the lie. Judge Helena, who watched everything with a rigidity that barely concealed her own consternation and indignation, finally broke the silence when the video ended, showing Marcello wiping his fingerprints and leaving the office with an air of morbid satisfaction. The silence that followed was even heavier than before, laden with a brutal and undeniable truth that hung over everyone. The judge struck the gavel forcefully, a sound that reverberated throughout the room, demanding order. "Silence! Silence in this court!" Her eyes, once skeptical, now gleamed with contained fury and deep sadness at the injustice that had almost materialized. She looked at Donna Rosa, whose tears were now of relief and gratitude, and then at Marcello, who was visibly crumbling, his charade exposed for all to see. Justice, which seemed so distant, had been achieved in a miraculous and unexpected way, restoring faith in the truth that at times needs a helping hand from destiny to surface. The raven, still perched on the bench, seemed to observe the scene with ancestral wisdom, as if it knew its role was fulfilled. That day, the courtroom witnessed not only the revelation of a crime, but the triumph of hope and truth. The sound of Judge Helena's gavel reverberated, no longer as a harbinger of condemnation, but as an echo of truth finally revealed. Marcello, pale and trembling, tried to protest, but his words were lost in an unintelligible babble. Two officers approached him with firm steps, and the nephew, once so sure of his impunity, collapsed in convulsive sobs, his knees giving way. The mask of coldness completely shattered, exposing a small, terrified man. He was gently but firmly escorted out of the room, his wails fading until they disappeared. Donna Rosa, in turn, felt a colossal weight lifted from her shoulders, a burden that had oppressed her for weeks. The tears now streaming down her wrinkled face were not of sadness, but of a relief so profound it almost choked her. She brought her hands to her chest, feeling her heart, once constricted by anguish, now beat with a rhythm of gratitude and renewed hope. Dr. Lucia, her eyes moist with tears, hugged the elderly woman tightly, a gesture of affection and victory that transcended their professional relationship. "You are free, Dona Rosa. Free," whispered the lawyer, her voice choked with emotion. Judge Helena observed the scene with contained yet visible emotion. Her eyes, which had witnessed so much human malice, now shone with a different light, a mix of indignation at the injustice almost committed and deep satisfaction at the truth that prevailed. She cleared her throat, her voice sounding softer, yet still laden with authority. "In light of the irrefutable evidence presented by this unexpected means, I declare Dona Rosa innocent of all charges. The defendant, Marcelo Vasconcelos, will be immediately detained and prosecuted for the murder of Arthur Vasconcelos and for attempted incrimination." A murmur of approval and subdued applause ran through the room. Many of those present, who had once viewed Dona Rosa with suspicion, now looked at her with compassion and admiration for her resilience. The raven, as if it understood its mission was accomplished, spread its dark wings. With a graceful and silent flight, it soared into the air, circled once above the heads of those present, and then exited through the same window it had entered, leaving behind a trail of mystery and the certainty that truth, at times, finds unusual ways to manifest itself. Dona Rosa felt the warmth of Dr. Lucia's embrace, the gentle touch of her hand on her back. The lawyer, with an exhausted yet radiant smile, helped her to stand. The elderly woman's legs still trembled, but not from fear, rather from an overwhelming liberation. She looked at Judge Helena, who returned her gaze with a respectful nod. In that moment, the humble seamstress and the experienced magistrate shared a silent bond, the understanding that justice, though at times slow and circuitous, always finds its way, especially when faith and hope persist. The afternoon sun, which had previously seemed gloomy, now streamed through the courtroom windows, illuminating Dona Rosa with a golden glow, a new beginning. The afternoon sun, which had previously seemed gloomy, now streamed through the courtroom windows, illuminating Dona Rosa with a golden glow, a new beginning. She felt the warmth of Dr. Lucia's embrace, the gentle touch of her hand on her back. The lawyer, with an exhausted yet radiant smile, helped her to stand. The elderly woman's legs still trembled, but not from fear, rather from an overwhelming liberation. Every step out of the courtroom was a victory, a rebirth. The fresh air of the street, once a synonym for distant freedom, now filled her lungs with an almost unreal sweetness. The people on the sidewalk, once divided between curiosity and judgment, now looked at her with palpable relief and silent admiration. Some waved timidly, others murmured words of support that, even muffled, reached her heart. Dr. Lucia, with a protective arm around the elderly woman's shoulders, guided her carefully. "Let's go home, Dona Rosa. You need to rest," said the lawyer, her voice, once tense and professional, now laden with an almost maternal tenderness. Dona Rosa merely nodded, words still caught in her throat by emotion. She felt a deep weariness, not just physical, but of the soul, exhausted by weeks of anguish and uncertainty. The image of Marcelo, crumbling in the courtroom, still lingered in her mind, a somber reminder of the malice that almost destroyed her. But above all, there was gratitude, a warm and overwhelming feeling for the mysterious raven, for the truth that freed her. Meanwhile, in the silent corridors of the courthouse, Judge Helena retired to her chambers. The weight of the gavel, which had so often signified the end of a story, today had sealed a new beginning for Dona Rosa and a new perspective for herself. She sat in her leather chair, her gaze fixed on the window through which the raven had departed. Her mind, always logical and anchored in facts, struggled to process what she had witnessed. A raven, A USB drive. A shocking truth. It was something that challenged all her experience, all her understanding of the justice system. A deep sigh escaped her lips. Helena felt a complex mix of emotions: indignation at the cruelty of Marcello's plot, compassion for Donna Rosa's vulnerability, and a renewed, almost mystical faith in justice. For years, she had seen the darkest face of humanity: manipulation, lies. But today, the truth had emerged from such an improbable place that it made her question everything. That elderly woman, with her unwavering dignity, had been a beacon in the darkness. The judge touched the smooth surface of her desk, feeling the roughness of the wood under her fingers. She promised herself that she would do everything in her power to ensure justice would be fully served, not just for Marcello, but to restore Donna Rosa's honor in every detail. The system had failed, but the truth, somehow, had found its way. Donna Rosa and Dr. Lucia reached the lawyer's car. Before getting in, the elderly woman turned to the imposing courthouse building. A last ray of sun kissed the tall columns, and for an instant she thought she saw a dark shadow flying in the distance, a familiar silhouette disappearing on the horizon. A faint smile, the first in a long time, bloomed on her lips. She knew that the journey to heal the wounds and rebuild her life would be long, but she was not alone. Human connection, Dr. Lucia's kindness, and the almost divine intervention had given her a second chance. Justice, after all, had a heart, and it beat strong, promising, in every fiber of her weary but now free soul. Donna Rosa, supported by Dr. Lucia, felt every fiber of her being vibrate with a mix of exhaustion and contained euphoria. The lawyer's embrace was a safe harbor, and the words of affection, a balm for her wounded soul. As they left the imposing courthouse, the afternoon air, once heavy with anxiety, now felt light and fragrant. She breathed deeply, feeling the sun on her face, a warmth that seemed to wash away weeks of darkness. The people on the sidewalk, who had once looked at her with suspicion, offered timid smiles and nods. A white-haired lady, with whom Donna Rosa exchanged words at the market, approached and squeezed her hand, her eyes moist with tears. "God bless you, Donna Rosa. I always knew you were innocent." That simple gesture was a balm, the first seed of restoration of her honor. In the car, Dr. Lucia drove with redoubled care, observing Donna Rosa from the corner of her eye. The elderly woman was silent, her eyes fixed on the passing landscape, as if trying to absorb every detail of the world that had almost been taken from her. "Where shall we go first, Donna Rosa?" "Home?" asked the lawyer, her voice soft. Donna Rosa turned, a look of deep gratitude in her eyes. "Yes, my dear, home. I need to see my needles, my fabrics. I need to smell my home." There was an urgency in her voice, a desire to reconnect with the simplicity that life in the courtroom had stolen. Meanwhile, back at the courthouse, Judge Helena was still in her chambers. The scene of the Raven and the USB drive replayed in her mind like a film. She stood up and walked to the window, observing the blue sky. Logic, her faithful companion for decades, had been shaken. How to explain it? There were no precedents, no articles that could categorize such an event. But beyond reason, there was an undeniable truth. An innocent life had been saved. She felt an even greater weight of responsibility. Justice was not just about laws and evidence, but about the essence of truth and the protection of the vulnerable. Helena picked up the phone and dialed. "I want the investigation team to review every detail of the Vasconcelos case, every thread, every testimony. And I want them to ensure that Marcelo Vasconcelos has no chance of escape. His attempt to incriminate Donna Rosa with such cruelty needs to be punished with the full force of the law." Her voice was firm, but now carried a new layer of conviction, a renewed passion for justice that went beyond mere duty. She felt that the community needed to see that truth always prevails, even when it emerges unexpectedly. Donna Rosa finally arrived at her small house, the wooden gate creaking like an old friend greeting her. The garden, a little neglected, seemed to smile with flowers that insisted on blooming. Upon entering, the scent of lavender and old fabric enveloped her, a fragrance of home, of life, of hope. She touched the sewing machine, her faithful companion for so many decades, feeling the coldness of the metal under her fingers. Silent tears streamed down, but they were tears of purification, of a rebirth. She wasn't just returning home, she was returning to herself, to the strong and resilient woman she had always been. Dr. Lucia watched with a tender smile, knowing that true healing began there, in that sanctuary of needles and threads. The path would be long, but the seed of hope had been planted. Donna Rosa sat in the old wooden chair in front of her sewing machine, her wrinkled hands resting on the cold metal. The silence of the house was a balm, but also a mirror for the echoes of the turbulence she had lived through. Dr. Lucia, after ensuring the elderly woman was comfortable and safe, said goodbye with a tight hug, promising to return the next day. "Rest, my dear. The worst is over," the lawyer had said, her eyes moist with weariness and relief. Donna Rosa had merely nodded, words still caught in her throat by emotion. She ran her fingers over the colorful fabrics stacked on the shelf, feeling the softness of cotton, the roughness of calico. Each scrap was a story, a memory of lives she had helped to dress, to adorn. But now her own stories seemed unraveled, needing to be sewn back together with patience and faith. Dinner was simple, herbal tea and a piece of bread. Every bite seemed a miracle, a taste she had almost forgotten. Lying in her bed, under the patchwork quilt she herself had sewn so many years ago, Donna Rosa closed her eyes. Sleep was slow to come, punctuated by flashes of the courtroom, Marcello's contorted face, the raven's silent flight. But finally, weariness won, and she sank into a deep sleep, the first truly peaceful one in weeks. Meanwhile, Judge Helena, in her chambers, reviewed the case files. The coldness of the documents contrasted with the explosion of emotions the courtroom had witnessed. She touched the small image of St. Michael the Archangel she kept on her desk, a gift from her mother. She had always been a woman of discreet faith, but what had occurred that day defied any logical explanation. A raven, a USB drive, a truth revealed. It was as if Providence itself had intervened. Helena felt a renewed urgency in her work. Marcello's conviction was not enough. It was necessary to restore Donna Rosa's dignity in all aspects. She dialed the chief of police, demanding a thorough investigation into how Marcello had planted the evidence so that every link in his plot would be undone. Justice, for her, was a complex fabric, and every thread needed to be carefully repaired. The next morning, Donna Rosa woke to the sunlight kissing her window. A smell of fresh coffee came from the kitchen. She smiled. It was the smell of home, of a new beginning. As she got up, she felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. She made her coffee, watered the garden plants, and sat on the porch, watching the street activity. Life went on, and she was part of it again. But the tranquility was brief. A car stopped in front of her house. It was the church car, and from it descended three ladies, community leaders, with baskets in their hands and warm smiles. "Donna Rosa, we came to see you. We heard the news." The voice of Donna Odette, the most outgoing of the group, echoed through the garden. Shortly after, a young reporter from a local newspaper, with a camera slung over his shoulder, timidly approached. "Donna Rosa, could we talk for a moment? Your story is so inspiring." Donna Rosa's heart tightened. She loved her community, but the sudden attention caught her off guard. She, who had always lived in the discretion of her workshop, was now the center of attention. The church ladies hugged her, offering cakes and words of comfort. The reporter, with a gentle look, asked for details of her experience. It was a wave of affection, yes, but also a tsunami of exposure. She felt grateful, deeply grateful, but also a little frightened, like a bird that, after being freed from its cage, finds itself in the vast open sky. The path to healing, she realized, would not just be about forgetting the past, but about learning to live with an unexpectedly grand and, at times, overwhelming present. Donna Rosa felt a lump in her throat. The church ladies, with soft voices and sympathetic looks, were well-intentioned, but every question, every hug, sapped the energy she was barely recovering. The reporter, young and polite, kept his distance, but his curious eyes and camera reminded her of her shattered life. "Donna Rosa, how did you feel when the raven appeared?" he asked. She clasped her hands. "It was a miracle, my son. Only God knows what I went through." Her voice came out weak. Dr. Lucia, who had returned, noticed the elderly woman's discomfort. With a gentle yet firm smile, she intervened. "We appreciate your kindness, but Donna Rosa needs peace and rest. She has been through immense trauma and needs to recover." The ladies, understanding, said goodbye, leaving the baskets of food. The reporter, with a nod, promised to return, but the promise sounded like an inevitable future of more exposure. When the door closed and silence returned, Donna Rosa let out a deep sigh. "I just wanted my life back, Lucia. My sewing, my garden. I don't want to be famous." Her eyes welled up from exhaustion. The lawyer sat beside her, taking her wrinkled hands. "I know, Donna Rosa, and we will achieve that. Your story has touched many people. It is a testament to faith and overcoming adversity." Meanwhile, at the courthouse, Judge Helena was in a meeting with the prosecutor and the chief of police. The table was laden with documents, but the conversation went beyond the papers. "We need to ensure that Donna Rosa's reputation is restored," the judge affirmed, her voice laden with determination. "It's not enough for Marcello to be convicted. The community needs to understand that she was a victim of unprecedented cruelty. I want the press to be informed of every detail of the investigation that proves her innocence." The prosecutor nodded, impressed by the judge's passion. "We will do that, Your Honor. We are already unraveling every step of Marcello's plot. He will have nowhere to run." The chief of police added, "And we will intensify Donna Rosa's security in case of retaliation, even though Marcello is detained." Helena looked at them, her eyes reflecting the gravity. Justice is not just about punishing the guilty, but protecting the innocent and restoring the truth. Donna Rosa deserves this, and may faith in justice be re-established through her story. She felt that the raven had not only revealed the truth, but had rekindled hope in a flawed system. Back at the small house, Dr. Lucia helped Donna Rosa put away the cakes and bread. "Let's start slowly, Donna Rosa. First, rest. Then, we'll think about how to use this visibility for good, if you wish. Perhaps inspire others not to give up, to trust in the truth." Donna Rosa looked at the lawyer, a smile appearing on her tired lips. "Perhaps, but for now I just want to sew my life back together." She picked up a piece of blue fabric, soft and vibrant, pressed it against her chest, feeling a familiar warmth. The idea that her painful story could inspire was new, almost frightening, but also a thread of hope. The journey would be long, but she was not alone. The seed of overcoming adversity was sprouting, slowly and firmly, in her heart. Donna Rosa pressed the blue fabric against her chest, feeling the familiar texture and warmth it seemed to radiate. The idea that her story, so full of pain and injustice, could transform into something inspiring was a new, almost frightening thought. She, a simple woman who had always found her purpose in threads and needles, was now seen as a symbol of resilience. Dr. Lucia, noticing the hesitation in the elderly woman's eyes, smiled with tenderness. "There's no rush, Donna Rosa. First, your peace. Then, if you feel like it, we'll think about the rest." In the days that followed, Donna Rosa's small house became a refuge. Visits decreased, thanks to Dr. Lucia's discreet intervention, who asked journalists for time for her recovery. Donna Rosa spent her mornings in the garden, tending to the flowers that seemed to have bloomed with more vigor after her return. Afternoons were dedicated to her sewing machine. At first, her hands trembled a little when handling the needle, and concentration was difficult. The image of Marcello, with his disguised smile in the courtroom, still haunted her thoughts, a vivid reminder of the cruelty that consumed her. With each stitch, each seam, a piece of her soul seemed to mend itself. She wasn't just sewing fabrics, she was sewing her own life back together, thread by thread. Dr. Lucia made regular visits, no longer as a lawyer, but as a friend. She brought homemade cakes, chatted, and subtly helped her process the trauma. "How do you feel today, Donna Rosa?" she would ask, with a look that went beyond words. "Better, my dear. Work helps me forget," the elderly woman would reply, a smile on her lips. The connection between the two women had deepened, transcending formality into a sincere friendship built on gratitude and mutual respect. Meanwhile, in the corridors of the courthouse, Judge Helena maintained her pace. Donna Rosa's case had left an indelible mark on her perception of justice. She personally supervised the investigation against Marcello Vasconcelos, ensuring that every detail of the plot was unraveled. Her objective was not just to punish the guilty, but also to restore public confidence in the system. "The truth needs to be clear as water," she would tell her team, so that no one else doubts Donna Rosa's innocence. She knew that society at times was quick to judge and slow to forgive. Helena also dedicated herself to a personal project, the creation of a legal support fund for underprivileged individuals, inspired by Donna Rosa's vulnerability. She felt that the Raven, somehow, had not only revealed a truth, but had awakened in her a new passion for a more accessible and compassionate justice. Her eyes, once focused solely on the law, now saw the stories behind the cases, the lives that depended on her decisions. Donna Rosa, in her workshop, began to receive orders again. First, from neighbors who had always trusted her. Then, from those who heard her story and wanted to show support. Every piece she sewed was an act of resistance, a testament that kindness and truth always find their way. She was not yet ready for fame, but the acceptance and affection of her community were a balm. The smell of new fabric and the sound of the sewing machine were the symphony of her rebirth. Life, though changed, was returning, and with it, the certainty that justice, even through mysterious paths, had given her a second chance to start anew. The certainty of a second chance, however, did not erase the scars of the soul. Donna Rosa, as she sewed, felt the memory of the dark days, a distant echo of the injustice that had almost consumed her. Her fingers, once agile and infallible, at times hesitated, reminding her of the fragility of life and human cruelty. But with each firm stitch, each well-stretched thread, she felt a strength reborn. It was not just the strength of a seamstress, but that of a woman who refused to be defined by what had been done to her. She began to observe her clients' faces more closely, realizing that many carried their own pains, their own silent struggles. A young mother, with a dress torn by her children's play, smiled with gratitude upon seeing the mended piece, her eyes moist with relief for a small problem solved. An elderly gentleman, who asked to adjust the hem of an old pair of trousers, shared stories of a simple life but full of challenges, and Donna Rosa listened with renewed patience, offering a comprehending nod. She, who once saw herself only as a victim, began to see herself as a bridge, someone who, through her craft and her own experience, could offer a little comfort and hope. Dr. Lucia, attentive to the signs, perceived the transformation. On a sunny afternoon, she brought with her a book of inspiring stories about people who overcame great adversities, leaving it carefully on the sewing machine. "And think you'll like it, Donna Rosa. Your story, in a way, resembles theirs," the lawyer said with a gentle sparkle in her eyes, a smile that conveyed more than words. Donna Rosa picked up the book, her wrinkled hands leafing through the pages with curiosity, feeling the weight of the wisdom contained within. The idea that her life could be an example for others still surprised her, but no longer frightened her. She began to read at night under the dim light of her bedside lamp and found comfort in the words of resilience and faith that echoed in her own journey. Gradually, the shame and fear that haunted her gave way to a quietude, a serene acceptance. She could not change the past, but she could shape the future, one stitch at a time, with the same dedication with which she sewed. Meanwhile, in the imposing courthouse building, Judge Helena faced her own challenges to establish the Raven of Justice Fund. The idea, so bold and innovative, met resistance from some more conservative sectors of the judiciary, who saw the initiative as a deviation from the cold impartiality of the law. "Justice is law, Your Honor, not charity," argued an older colleague, with a dry and formal tone of voice, gesturing with his pen. But Helena, with her firm voice and unwavering conviction, responded, her eyes fixed on his. "Law without compassion is merely a cold letter. True justice protects the vulnerable and ensures that truth, however improbable its origin, always prevails." She dedicated extra hours after work to organize documents, seek partnerships with universities and volunteer lawyers, and lecture on the importance of a more humane and accessible system. The image of Donna Rosa, with her unwavering dignity in the face of adversity, was her greatest motivation, a beacon to guide her steps. She felt that the Raven had not only revealed a truth, but had ignited a flame in her own heart, driving her to fight for a justice that was more than just sentences, but a true beacon of hope for all who sought refuge. Faith, once a personal and reserved matter, now guided her actions in a more visible and powerful way, transforming not only the system, but herself into an agent of change. Faith, once a personal and reserved matter, now guided her actions in a more visible and powerful way, transforming not only the system, but herself into an agent of change. Donna Rosa, under the soft light of the bedside lamp, continued to leaf through the book Dr. Lucia had given her. The stories of overcoming adversity, embroidered with the resilience of souls who faced gales, began to weave a new pattern in her own heart. She read about a woman who, after losing everything, found a new purpose by teaching art to underprivileged children, and about a man who, wronged, dedicated his life to helping others find the truth. Each page was a thread that joined, showing that pain, however deep, could be transformed into a bridge to good. Her eyes, once moist with bitter memories, now shone with a thoughtful quietude. She was not a fairy tale heroine, but her life, so simple and discreet, had been the stage for a miracle. And if that miracle had a purpose, perhaps it was so that she, Donna Rosa, could also make a difference. One afternoon, as the sewing machine hummed softly, she picked up a piece of white fabric, pure as snow, and began to sketch a design. It wasn't for a dress nor for a tablecloth. It was something different, a project born from her soul. Her fingers, once hesitant, now moved with renewed precision, each stitch a prayer, each line a promise. Dr. Lucia, visiting her, found her immersed in this new creation. "What are you doing, Donna Rosa?" the lawyer asked with a curious smile. Donna Rosa raised her eyes, a sparkle of determination in them. I'm sowing hope, my dear, for those who, like me, once felt lost." Her gesture, as she pressed the fabric against her chest, was one of tenderness that revealed the depth of her new inspiration. Meanwhile, in Judge Helena's chambers, the struggle for the Raven of Justice Fund intensified. The opposition, led by Judge Almeida, a man of old laws and an inflexible mind, argued that the judiciary should not engage in welfarism. "Our role is to apply the law, Your Honor, not to create charities," he said, lightly tapping the table with his fingertips, his expression laden with disapproval. Helena, however, was not shaken. Her eyes, once focused solely on the cold letter of the law, now saw the human essence behind each case. Judge, law without access is a locked door for many. What happened to Donna Rosa was a warning. Justice needs to be a beacon, not a labyrinth. This fund is not charity. It is the guarantee that truth, however humble the voice that proclaims it, will have a chance to be heard. She presented data, testimonies, and Donna Rosa's story with a passion she rarely showed. Her gestures were firm. Her voice resonated with unwavering conviction. She knew that change was slow, but she was determined to be the seed. At night, in her apartment, she reviewed the fund's statutes, seeking every legal loophole, every argument that could break down the resistance. The image of the Raven, perched on the defense table, was a constant reminder that truth could emerge from improbable places, and that justice, in its purest form, was an act of faith and compassion. She felt that her mission went beyond sentences. It was about building a legacy of hope, a point of support for the invisible, the forgotten. The struggle was arduous, but the flame ignited by the Raven in her heart was inextinguishable. Judge Helena's struggle for the Raven of Justice Fund reached its most critical point. The meeting with the Superior Judicial Council was tense, the air heavy with formality and the resistance of Judge Almeida. He, with his rigid posture and monotonous voice, insisted that the proposal was a distortion of the judicial function. His eyes, behind thin-rimmed glasses, swept the room, seeking support from the other members, who seemed divided. Helena, seated at the head of the large mahogany table, felt the weight of every gaze. But her determination was unwavering. She took a deep breath, her hands clasped on the table, and began to speak, not with the coldness of the law, but with the passion of one who had seen the face of injustice up close. "Gentlemen, justice cannot be a privilege of those who can pay. Donna Rosa's case showed us a painful truth, the vulnerability of the simplest people in the face of complex plots. The Raven, with its mysterious intervention, not only revealed a crime, but exposed a flaw in our system." She paused, looking directly at Judge Almeida. "This fund is not charity. It is the extension of our responsibility. It is the voice of the voiceless, the hand that supports those who stumble. It is the faith in truth that guides us." Her voice, once calm, gained a strength that echoed in the room. One of the council's younger members, Judge Clara, who had until then observed in silence, nodded her head, a sparkle of admiration in her eyes. Almeida tried to interrupt, but Helena raised her hand, a subtle yet firm gesture. "We need a system that not only punishes, but prevents injustice, that restores dignity, that shows society that faith in justice is not a utopia, but a reality we build together." She presented data, testimonies from volunteer lawyers, and finally, a projection of the fund's social impact, showing how it could transform lives, offering legal and psychological support. The room fell silent. Helena's argumentation was irrefutable, her passion contagious. Judge Almeida, for the first time, seemed to hesitate, his forehead furrowed in deep reflection. Meanwhile, in Donna Rosa's small house, the seamstress's secret project was almost ready. The white fabric, which she had pressed against her chest, had transformed into a delicate tapestry embroidered with threads of all colors. It was not a figurative image, but an abstract representation of intertwined paths, of hands joining, of a stylized raven flying over a field of flowers. Each stitch was a piece of her journey, of her pain, transformed into hope. Her fingers, now firmer than ever, gave the final touches. Dr. Lucia, upon entering the workshop, stopped, her eyes wide with surprise and emotion. "Donna Rosa, this is magnificent." The tapestry radiated its own light, an energy of overcoming adversity. Donna Rosa smiled, a smile that illuminated her entire wrinkled face. "It's my way of saying thank you, my dear, and to show that, even from the shadows, something beautiful can be born." At that very instant, Dr. Lucia's phone rang. It was Judge Helena, her voice vibrating with contained joy. "Lucia, the Raven of Justice Fund has been approved, unanimously." The lawyer let out a cry of surprise and happiness, hugging Donna Rosa tightly. The two women, united by faith and truth, felt that the cycle was closing. Donna Rosa's tapestry, a symbol of human resilience, and Helena's fund, a beacon of legal hope, were proof that justice, when guided by compassion, could truly flourish. The seed planted by the Raven had germinated, transforming pain into a legacy of altruism and human connection, a silent testament that truth, however improbable its arrival, would always find its way to illuminate the world. The news of the Raven of Justice Fund's approval echoed in the small sewing room, filling it with a palpable joy. Dr. Lucia hugged Donna Rosa tightly, a deep relief. The tears, once of anguish, were now of pure gratitude. Donna Rosa, her wrinkled face illuminated by a smile that reached her tear-filled eyes, returned the embrace, feeling the warmth of friendship and victory. The tapestry in her hands seemed to vibrate. "A miracle, my dear," whispered Donna Rosa, her voice choked. "Everything fell into place, didn't it?" Lucia nodded. "Yes, Donna Rosa. Your faith, Judge Helena's courage, and that mysterious raven. Everything came together for the truth to prevail." In the following days, Donna Rosa's life began to readjust fully and serenely. The community, once divided, now embraced her with redoubled affection. Visits were no longer out of curiosity, but genuine solidarity. People came not only for sewing, but to share their stories of overcoming adversity, seeing in her a mirror of resilience. She listened to everyone with attentive listening and an open heart, offering comfort and the certainty that hope never dies, even in the greatest adversities. Her tapestry, a vibrant tangle of colors and symbols, became a talking point, a visible representation of her journey and the light that emerged from the shadows. Meanwhile, in the corridors of the courthouse, Judge Helena felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. The fund's approval was a glorious beginning. She gathered her team, including the dedicated Judge Clara, to map out the next steps. "This fund will be the voice of the voiceless," Helena affirmed, her eyes shining with new passion. "It will be the foundation so that no other Donna Rosa would have to face injustice alone." Volunteer lawyers were already coming forward, and universities offered support. The news of Marcelo Vasconcelos's conviction, who received the maximum sentence, came as a relief, closing the cycle of pain and opening the way for healing. Justice, finally, had been done. Donna Rosa decided that her tapestry, full of meaning, would not be kept hidden. In a simple yet deeply moving ceremony, she donated it to the Raven of Justice Fund for display at its newly inaugurated headquarters as an eternal symbol. "May it remind everyone that truth always finds a way, and that compassion can transform pain into hope," she said, with a firm voice, before a small crowd that included Judge Helena, Dr. Lucia, and many friends. Judge Helena, moved, squeezed Donna Rosa's wrinkled hand. "Your story, Donna Rosa, is the soul of this fund. It is living proof that faith in justice is not a distant dream, but a flame we can ignite together." That day marked a new chapter for Donna Rosa and the community. She continued with her sewing, but now with an even greater purpose and a light heart. Her hands, once trembling with fear, worked with the serenity of inner peace. She became an informal counselor, a voice of wisdom and experience, a beacon of hope. The Raven of Justice Fund prospered, helping countless people find legal support and restore their lives with dignity. The Raven's seed had germinated, and its fruits were irrefutable proof that truth, justice, and compassion were the strongest threads to weave a better and more humane world. Donna Rosa's life, once shattered, was now richer and fuller than she had ever imagined, a living testament to the strength of the human spirit and the beauty of a deserved second chance. Donna Rosa's life, once shattered, was now richer and fuller than she had ever imagined, a living testament to the strength of the human spirit and the beauty of a deserved second chance. The months that followed the emotional inauguration of the Raven of Justice Fund brought a deep serenity to her soul. Her workshop, once a solitary refuge, transformed into a center of welcome and sharing. Clients came not only to adjust a garment or sew a new dress, but to seek advice, a welcoming smile, a word of comfort that only Donna Rosa, with her quiet wisdom and her eyes that had seen so much, could offer. She told her stories, not with bitterness, but with the perspective of one who had overcome a great storm, showing that unwavering faith and resilience are the strongest foundations for rebuilding. Her fingers, once marked by fear and uncertainty, now glided over the fabrics with a lightness that reflected the peace found in her heart. Each stitch she sewed was a silent reminder that life, even after the greatest trials, could be rebuilt, stronger, more dignified, and infinitely more beautiful. Dr. Lucia, who had become like a daughter to Donna Rosa, visited her frequently, bringing encouraging news from the fund and sharing the victories of others who were being helped. Today, Donna Rosa, the fund secured the freedom of a family man who was being unjustly accused of a petty theft. "Thanks to the evidence we managed to collect," Lucia recounted, her eyes shining with the joy of justice served. "Your story inspired everyone not to give up, to fight for the truth." Donna Rosa listened attentively, a soft smile on her wrinkled lips, feeling that her pain had not been in vain, but had transformed into a beacon of hope for so many others. The tapestry she had donated, a vibrant explosion of colors and meanings displayed at the fund's headquarters, became a powerful symbol, attracting visitors who were moved by the narrative of its creation and the miracle it represented. In the imposing courthouse building, Judge Helena observed the exponential growth of the Raven of Justice Fund with a pride that warmed her soul. The fund, which began as a bold and challenging idea, had quickly consolidated, offering legal and psychological assistance to hundreds of humble and vulnerable people. Judge Clara, her most faithful and dedicated ally, coordinated the daily operations, ensuring that each case was treated with the dignity, attention, and compassion it deserved. Helena, in her lectures and conferences across the country, always mentioned Donna Rosa and the mysterious Raven, reminding everyone that justice was not limited to codes and written laws, but was, above all, an act of compassion and an incessant search for truth, even when it presented itself in an unexpected and almost divine way. Her eyes, once tired by the exhaustive routine, now carried a renewed sparkle, the certainty that she had found a greater and more humane purpose in her distinguished career. She dedicated herself with fervor to training a new generation of jurists, inspiring them to see beyond papers and procedures, to see the real souls and stories behind each legal case. The memory of Marcelo Vasconcelos serving his maximum sentence was a somber reminder of human malice, but also of the effectiveness of justice when it is relentless with the guilty and compassionate with the innocent. The community, once shaken by doubt and prejudice, now celebrated the truth and solidarity that united everyone. The neighborhood children, who once viewed Donna Rosa with a mix of curiosity and apprehension, now greeted her with genuine affection, running to her garden to observe the colorful flowers and listen to her fascinating stories. Donna Rosa, at the end of each day, sat on her porch, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of orange, purple, and gold. A raven, at times, would perch on the highest branch of the mango tree in her backyard, observing her in silence before soaring majestically. She smiled, a smile of deep gratitude and full acceptance. That raven, the unexpected messenger of truth, had changed her life forever, but not just hers. It had ignited an inextinguishable flame of hope in many hearts, showing that justice, kindness, and human connection are the strongest and most enduring threads that weave the complex and beautiful tapestry of life. Her story, the story of a humble seamstress and a mysterious raven, became a living legend, a timeless testament that truth, however hidden, always finds its way to the light, and that faith, even in the darkest moments, can guide us to a full and inspiring rebirth. The sun, which had previously seemed to hide behind the clouds of adversity, now bathed Donna Rosa's small workshop with a golden and constant light. Her life, once a tangle of worries and fears, unfolded into a fabric of serene and meaningful days. The neighborhood children who once looked at her with distant curiosity now knocked on her door to ask for help with small repairs to their school clothes or to listen to her stories, told with the calm of one who had seen the worst and found the best. Donna Rosa, with her soft voice and hands that still held the memory of precise stitches, transformed each request into an opportunity to share not only her skills, but also the wisdom that life had taught her. She spoke about the importance of being honest, of having patience, and above all, of never losing faith, even when the world seemed to crumble around her. The tapestry, her masterpiece of resilience, continued to inspire at the headquarters of the Raven of Justice Fund. Visitors from all over, drawn by the fame of the story and the miracle, made a point of seeing it, touching the fabric with reverence, as if they could absorb some of the strength that emanated from it. Dr. Lucia, now a prominent figure in the defense of the vulnerable, frequently brought new volunteer lawyers to meet Donna Rosa. "She is the soul of our work," Lucia would say, with a proud smile, while Donna Rosa offered herbal tea and homemade cookies, her eyes conveying an unparalleled welcome. The lawyer, who was once a defender, had become a true daughter, sharing not only the fund's victories, but also life's small challenges, finding in Donna Rosa a safe harbor of understanding and affection, and a love that transcended blood ties. In the courthouse, Judge Helena observed the fund's expansion with a satisfaction that went beyond professional achievement. The Raven of Justice Fund had become a model, replicated in other cities, a beacon of hope for those who, like Donna Rosa, one day found themselves alone before the relentless judicial machine. Judge Clara, her dedicated partner, now led the expansion, traveling the country to share the methodology and vision born from an act of faith and the courage of a simple woman. Helena, in turn, dedicated herself to writing a book, not about laws, but about the intersection of justice with compassion, using Donna Rosa's story as the core of her argument. She believed that true justice was not just about punishing, but restoring, healing, and above all, preventing innocence from being crushed by malice and indifference. Judge Helena's lectures were always packed, and she spoke with an eloquence that moved everyone, reminding them that truth has an intrinsic power to manifest itself. even through a mysterious raven. She emphasized that faith in humanity and belief in a greater purpose were essential to building a more just and equitable system, where every voice mattered. The community, which had once been divided between judgment and doubt, now united around the values of solidarity and mutual support. Small neighborhood parties, once rare, became more frequent, with Dona Rosa always at the center, sharing her contagious joy and the wisdom of her years. At dusk, when the sky was tinged with purple and the silence of night began to fall, Dona Rosa sat on her porch, feeling the gentle breeze. The raven, the same one that had changed her life, or perhaps one of its descendants, still occasionally visited the mango tree, perching on the highest branch. Observing her with an almost human serenity, she smiled, a smile that carried the peace of one who had understood life's mysteries and the beauty of her own journey. That raven was not just an animal. It was a living reminder that the universe conspires in favor of truth, that justice, however long it takes, always finds its way, and that faith, when cultivated with love and resilience, can transform the deepest pain into a legacy of eternal hope. Dona Rosa's story, the story of a humble seamstress who sewed hope into every stitch of her life, continued to be told, a golden thread in the infinite tapestry of human existence, inspiring generations to believe in the beauty of truth and the unwavering strength of the spirit that resides within each of us.